Hi, it's Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Career Coach Office Hours for January 21st. Woohoo! It's 9:15 a.m., and I've been listening to an audiobook, and we're just on the epilogue, and it's a tearjerker epilogue. So if I'm slightly off, I apologize in advance, but I'm listening to a book called The Third Door by Alex Benayan. Terrific book. I haven't read it. I've been listening to it. And it's a wonderful journey that he's on where he learns some great lessons. So um, if I'm a little distracted again, I apologize. But welcome to Career Coach Office Hours for today. Tuesdays and Fridays at 9:15 a.m. Eastern. I spend about a half hour-ish answering questions from people about their job search, about hiring more effectively, management, leadership, dealing with different workplace issues. If you're watching on LinkedIn, pop a quick note to me, say hi. Oh, I appreciate the heart. That's very, very nice. Um, pop a quick note into chat. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, please do the same. But I don't get data from LinkedIn. So I make a special point of mentioning it to them. And if you have a question about your search, about your career, about any element of your professional life, or if you want me to do phone therapy with you, put a message in the chat. Let's see if I can help. And I've been starting off the show now for a while doing a coffee toast to each of you. And I'll just start by saying I'm going to toast those of you who really care about what you do, for whom your work has meaning, and that you keep trying to persevere and not lose yourself to institutional transformation, homogenation, that you still maintain your personality. And you don't let it succumb to the structure and the bureaucracy and the way they want you to become mediocre and give up yourself. So, my toast to those of you who are persevering in all of this. And as we start, let me just simply say again, if you have a question for me, put it into chat. I'd be very happy to answer your questions about job search, hiring more effectively, management, leadership, dealing with a workplace issue that you have. And if you want to say hi or go, I'm having a personal problem, I'll try and help with that too. Okay. So in the meantime, I'm going to start with the opening question I have. Let's see if I can find it because there are a lot that came in. Do companies usually pay for interviews? This is going to be a quick one. No, they don't pay for interviews. In the past, I've seen websites where a company would pay. I don't remember what sites those are. If someone who's watching or listening does remember, that'd be great. I appreciate the help. I'll share it with other folks. But companies don't pay unless it's an internal interview. That is, you're working for a company, you're looking for a position internally. So I'll simply say, in terms of what firms do, only if you're interviewing for a role internally do you have a shot at getting paid. What is the standard ramp up time for new hires is a question that got put into chat by Terry. So there's no standard answer. Uh, when I talk to people and prep them for interviews, I'll say in the course of the preparation, one of the questions you might ask is, let's say you hire me and I come on board. What would your expectations of me be for the first 30, 60, 90 days? And that gives you an idea of what the ramp up time is for 90 days. Now, you can, in the interview, talk about it. So let's break that up a little bit. In the first month, what would you want me to do? Second month, third month. And along the way, while you're working for them, you meet with your manager and get a flavor for what they think, how they think you're performing. You give them some information about what you're doing. But in terms of ramp up time, each firm, each manager within a firm structures it a little bit differently. And some firms have no thought about it. It's almost done by whim. And for those, like I didn't remember when I worked in recruiting, the only thing they cared about is whether you were doing deals. So the ramp up time was, are you getting interviews? Okay, great. How many second interviews? How many third interviews? How many finals? And they want to get a sense of progression. So the same thing is going to happen in your role. There's going to be a certain progression of expectations they have. Talk with them before you start about what they're going to want you to accomplish in the first month, over the second month, over the third month, so you know what the target is that you're aiming for. Because each company, each manager is going to be a little bit different. Hope that was helpful to you. Got another question. Would it be a good idea to call your boss by their initial right when you're first employed, like Mr. W? So I know you're being affectionate or friendly by referring to your boss in that way. However, let me continue by saying what you can do is notice what other people refer to him or her as. In this case, it's a him, but notice how they're referred to. And that's going to give you guidance about how you should do it initially. With time, when you earn their trust, you switch it to your version of a nickname. But follow their lead initially and then grow into the friendliness that's going to give you that flexibility to call them as you prefer. Why are talented workers more willing to wait for the right job offer than to seek it out? This isn't about turning down an offer. It's about finding the right offer. And this person thinks they wait for it to arrive in their lap than to search for it. Got it. So it's interesting because the person who gets ahead isn't always the smartest or work the hardest, although those are great qualities to have. People get ahead by being alert to opportunities. Sometimes those are internal in the organization. More often than not, they're external, right? So for the person who isn't actively looking for work, they're not actively looking, so they're going to respond to things that land in their lap. Now, if you're ostensibly aggressively looking for work, they may not know how to job search. They may be afraid or embarrassed to network. They may not know how to do it or do it well, or they've been turned down too many times, they've just given up. Again, the person who gets ahead is one who has opportunity come to them. They're not out necessarily looking for work. It arrives. Part of that's because they built a reputation and a brand for excellence. And thus people know of them and they present opportunities to them. In the meantime, they're trying to do great work where they are and continue to work at being exceptional so that in this way, more people get to know them. More people, they're promoting themselves that much more and thus sharing their successes online, for example, and with their friends, and recruiters hear about them and they come to them. So why are they more willing to wait? They're busy doing a great job. If they're looking for a job, they may not know how to do it differently. And that's sad because there's so much great information and so much good coaching. See my face when I say so much good coaching? That will teach them how to do it. So if this is you, very simply contact me. You can do it through my website, thebiggamehunter.us, and schedule time for a free discovery call or schedule time for coaching. Next question is it better to be an individual contributor or a manager? Really? I don't think there's a right answer to this question, to be honest with you. At this stage in your life, You may like being a contributor versus a manager. That's okay. You will make more money generally by being a manager than an individual contributor. That's okay. But normally, the repetition of doing the individual contributor role wears thin after a while. Managers come and go, they become judgmental, they wind up turning people off. Those individuals head for the hills and they aspire to make management. So they're the ones who are dictating what's right for you. I have no idea. But if you want to stay an individual contributor for a while longer, by all means do it. But learn how to lead along the way. Notice what works that your manager does, what other managers do. Learn leadership, not just simply management. Management is a controlled function. Can you deliver on this within this period of time? Great. Can you manage up so that their boss, your boss, has a clear understanding of what's possible and what isn't? Great. Can you avoid them being surprised? That's great. Can you manage down? And that is support the people who report to you getting the job done that they've been assigned. Leadership is different. Leadership has followers, not people who are being managed. And as someone who has followers, they're connected with you in some way. They're inspired to do great work. You don't have to motivate them. I learned this description. Management, motivation is lighting a fire underneath someone. Inspiration is lighting a fire within someone. You want to be hiring people who are inspired to do great things and not need motivation. Hey, David, it's been 100 years. and he writes, and it's lovely. I knew David when he was a rookie recruiter. It's great hearing you, Jeff. Consistent words of wisdom. 25 years and counting. That's got to be you, because I got a lot more than that. So it's great seeing your face, and it's terrific hearing your words. Thank you. And if I can help you in some way, David, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Not because you need, and you don't have to do it because you need it. You can do it because you want to, okay? And thank you for chiming in. Great to hear your voice. I've got more questions from folks. And let's see now. Do IT recruiters get a higher salary than the people they hire? Well, IT recruiters normally don't make a salary. They may have a base salary and earn a bonus on top of that, or I should say a commission on top of that. Or they may be on a draw against their commission. That is, any money they are paid is like a loan. It's a non-repayable loan. And thus what they're able to do is you earn a commission at a high percentage, and that's applied against the weekly or biweekly check or however they're paid. And thus what they're able to do is, frankly, earn a lot of money. I know I did. And David, after you left us, I'm not sure how you did in recruiting. I don't remember whether you went corporate at that point. And I know Terry did very well, but I'll simply say, generally they'll out-earn the people they're representing. And there are the people who don't. They wash out, or they're mediocre performers. And thus, no, they're not going to make a lot of money. And they'll go from agency to agency trying to, catch that lucky charm that's going to make a difference. But there are many people who don't earn as much as the people they're representing. And there are people like me and others who do, and far more than they do. So I'll simply say, it depends. Okay. I'm just going to remind you folks, if you've got a question about job search, hiring more effectively, management, leadership, or just want to ask advice around a particular workplace issue, put it into chat. So I'd be happy to answer your question while we're on. Okay. Let's see what the next question someone emailed to me. And by the way, just to remind you, between shows, if you have a question for me, you can email it to me at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. And in the subject line, put the phrase office hours. This way I know what it's about and I can kind of manage my inbox and have it handled for me before the show. Okay. How do you handle a low performing employee who is brought in by very senior management of the firm? Here's what you do. Number one is have a respectful conversation with them about what your expectations are, what you want to see from them, and not involve very senior management. Very, very simple, very, very smooth. You know, you don't treat them like everyone else. If your way is not to be respectful, you never yell at them. You just have a private conversation with them and say, how are things going? And they'll tell you. They may talk with you about, I know I'm not really doing great so far. What can I be doing better? See, what you're trying to do is connect with them as a person to get a sense of how they think they're doing. And then from there, saying, there are a couple of places I think I want you to do better, or I'm sure I want you to do better. Consider this. And how do you handle a low performing manager? I'll get to that one in a second, Michael. So the idea becomes you talk with them privately and then do another conversation where you either praise them or talk with them about the progress you've seen, where they can continue to improve. If they backslide, there comes a point where you have to talk with senior management so that they get into the loop. Not because you want to get the person fired, but you want to say to them, I've spoken with them a couple of times about their performance, and so far I'm not getting it. I've seen some progress. I'm continuing to work with them, but I don't want you to be surprised if they come to you and complain about this, that, or the other thing. I've had conversations with them about it. This shouldn't be a surprise. Other people are doing this pretty readily, and this is what tends to happen. So involve them, but not initially. Now, Michael asks a variation on this question. How do you handle a low-performing manager? Great question. And it depends on where we're talking about. If you're at a staff level, there's one type of answer. If you're at a senior level, it's kind of like the one I was giving for this person. If you're at a senior level and you have a manager who's not performing well, you talk with them privately, have a frank conversation with them, and talk with them about the areas of improvement you want to see from them. You also compliment them about the things you see that they're doing well. Don't just focus on the negative. Start off initially, kind of like at a Toastmasters meeting. When they critique a speaker, they start off with a compliment about some of the things that the person's doing well. And they say, there are a couple of things I want to continue to see from you. And if you could work on these, I'd be absolutely thrilled. And maybe we could talk in 2-3 weeks and see how you're doing, because I want to make sure you do the things that get you promoted. You also obviously have a responsibility to me as your leader to deliver on these things. So, you're giving them a sense of what they're doing well, where the improvement is, that you're going to follow up with them and not just simply surprise them at the review time. And then again, you praise them about some of the things that they're doing well, and then schedule a meeting 2-3 weeks out to review their progress. That's probably the simplest thing. If you're a subordinate and you're trying to help the low performing manager above you, that's a little trickier, obviously, because you don't have power. But what you can do is go in and meet with them at some point. Maybe there's a regular conversation you have with them. Or, again, as a subordinate, you can say, you got 15 minutes I could get from you today, tomorrow. I promise not to go over 15. And you can say to them, are you okay? Because I'm getting the sense that something's off about you. Because I've seen you do this before, but I'm not seeing you do it anymore. And as David adds in, managing up is a very important skill. So it's a respectful conversation that you have that allows you to say, "Are you okay?" Because you seemed off recently. You were gangbusters when I first joined, and now there's something off about you, and I'm concerned. And that's probably as far as you can take the conversation. What you've done is, you set off an alarm clock by their ear that one of the people has noticed the problem. And they may talk about a problem at home. They may talk about a problem in their office, their own frustrations at work, but you've alerted them to something. And maybe that kicks up their game. Maybe they're looking to leave already. There could be any number of problems that they may share with you or not share with you. But showing concern is probably the smoothest way to do it. And David, if you have a different opinion, I'd be very happy to throw it into the mix here. But managing up is clearly an important skill because you never want to offend, because that comes back and haunts you. It's rare that showing concern is going to offend, because if they turn around and say, "No, I'm feeling fine, everything is good with me," or behavior along those lines, that's just bluff and bluster. It's not necessarily real. And great leaders love feedback and want to understand how to better enable their talent to be successful. Bad leaders could be a very different story involving retaliation. So true. So that's why the gentle approach, more often than not, is one that is like an alarm clock for them. They are finding out that someone perceives something wrong. It's rare that quality people, the good leaders, as David refers to them, are going to freak out and respond as "I acted out there." So try a conversation by asking for 15 minutes. Okay. Next question. Would a company be hesitant to hire a software developer when they request the recruiter to reschedule the interview as they need more time to prepare? Okay, let me try making this simple. How's a company going to respond to a developer who says they want to reschedule because they need more time to prep for the interview? Badly, thank you. That one's an easy question too, because it basically says, unless I do my homework, and the homework is taking me longer than I expected, uh, unless I do my homework, I'm going to bomb it on the interview. So not a good signal to send. Now, if you want to say, I have a meeting that's been called and I need another 2 days before I could free up, any possibility that we could push it back 2 days, well, that's different. That's a different message that you're sending. You're presenting as the diligent employee who has no available time to take off for an interview for 2 days. Now, these days with work at home, it's not quite that simple because most people have some gap in their schedule, even in a full workday, where they could spend a half hour having a conversation. But never present it as, "I need more time to prep for the interview," because you seem like a dud at that point, in needing that time. This one was a great question. I love this one. I fired a respected employee of my company because we had different visions, but we're now suffering a mass exodus because of that. What should I do as CEO? Fun question. Well, you know someone screwed up, and that is, as CEO. And David, thank you. Great having you on for a little while. Happy New Year to you as well. So, as CEO, there are people who follow your subordinates. So this is probably the president of the firm, chief operating officer, someone fairly senior, and you're seeing exodus. The first thing I would do is to meet with the critical people and connect with them and talk with them about what's transpired so far, why you made the decision, because the failure to communicate may be the problem. It may also be that they perceive you're the problem because they've enrolled in that vision. You may want to talk with them about why you want to adhere to your vision rather than this other person's. Have an open conversation with them. Be free in the conversation. No retribution for a difference of opinion. If anything, you'll have to defend yourself if they're going to be open with you. But key in on certain individuals who are important to you because they're going to be your ambassadors with the organization. I don't know how large your firm is, if it's 500 people, 5,000 people, whatever it is. But once you're talking about a mass exodus, that sounds significant to me. And you've got to key in on important people because especially during a time where firms are hiring as much as they are, you don't want to lose your key people and they're going to get picked up. So I'll simply say, go for it. Don't just simply pretend it's going to go away. Deal with it. Okay? I'm just going to remind you, put your questions about job search, hiring more effectively, management leadership, or advice around the workplace issue into chat. I'd be very happy to answer your questions. Is it a bad sign if a hiring manager rescheduled a call with me where he was going to share a final result? This happened after another candidate's final interview, and I suspect they may have decided on the other person. And I agree with you. I think they've done that because if they were going to make an offer to you, if they were going to choose you, they'd be trying to reschedule the appointment instantly. Or they wouldn't reschedule. They'd be getting on the phone to extend an offer to you. They're giving you the courtesy of telling you in person. And don't be a creep when they finally get on the phone with you and say, yeah, when you cancel the other interview, I knew you chose the other person. No. They may have extended the other offer and are treating you as the second person. And thus they may come back to you for the offer if the other candidate declines it. So sit tight for a little while. If a few days goes by and if you haven't heard, I've been waiting, send them an email or send them a text and say, I haven't been rescheduled. I'm really anxious about this. Could we have that conversation? And then see how it plays out. Okay. But the probability is they've chosen the other person. They're waiting for a decision from them. And if after a few days they haven't gotten one, maybe they come back to you. We don't know. My boss says I'm too young, I'm 25, for a management position, even though he really appreciates my work for the last 5 years. How do I get into a leadership position? Take a look around you, first of all. Who are the people who are in management? How old were they when they got into management? That's a cue. You probably should have noticed this by now at your organization. How old were they when they got their chance? If you're not sure, go to their LinkedIn profile and see what's there. See if you can find out in that manner. Because the fact of the matter is, this may not be the place for you to get into management for years. Don't know. Also, you might ask your boss, so I know it's not my age that's the factor, but it's my experience that's the variable for you. Because I've been here for 5 years. I've done this, that. And I know you respect my work. What are your expectations of me right now that will allow you to make me a manager? Because I know it's not my age. If they say it's your age and they say, but when you're 30, you'll be ready for manager, maybe you can find an organization that will do it for you now or when you're 26. But don't sit and wait till you're 30 because your resentment is going to build up during that time and it's going to frustrate you and you'll lose your desire to be successful. Excuse me, to be successful with this firm. So get more information before you give up. Okay. I think I've got one more question. Yeah, one more question here. If you apply with different resumes to the same company, do recruiters compare the current resume with previous versions? Their systems may. And because you have to remember, it may not just be one recruiter who's looking at the resume, right? If you're applying to a large institution, they may have 4 or 40 recruiters, depending upon the size of the firm and the expertise that they're looking for, evaluating resumes. So if you're sending a resume for an engineering job and then for an accounting position, their system may pick up on your address, your name and zip code. Particularly large organizations at the time of application ask for the last 4 digits of your social security number, and thus the absence of that, the fact that they'll see 2 applications with the same social security number is going to signal them of a problem. Their backgrounds are so different. So it's not necessarily the recruiters who pick up on it. It could be the people, the systems that do that. And I'll point out one other thing. If there are 2 recruiters who are having you interview at their organizations, they'll notice in the systems, because there are notes and scheduling that's being done, the conflict. And they'll suddenly have a conversation with one another, and they'll go, and one of them will circle back to you and go, okay, which one is you? Which background is really you? And you can say, well, they're both me. Well, which job do you prefer? They're not going to let you interview for one because they don't want to be in a position where managers are bumping heads to hire people. They're going to force you to make a choice pretty early. So before I sign off, let me just see, does anyone else have a question for me? And again, there's still a moment or two. You can put your question into chat for me to answer. And if not, I'll simply say, I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I'm back on Tuesday at 9:15 Eastern with more Career Coach office hours. If you have a question for me, email it to me in advance of the show at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. In the subject line, put the phrase office hours. This way I know what it's about and can kind of organize myself in advance. In addition, visit my website, thebiggamehunter.us. I've got a ton in the blog that you can watch, listen to, or read that will help you. And you can find out about my courses. You can schedule time for a free discovery call or schedule time for coaching with me. I can help you in a lot of different ways, is my point. Also, if this isn't the right time for you to visit my website for whatever the reason, put that address in your phone. That's thebiggamehunter.us and my name, Jeff Altman. And maybe in the notes area, put the phrase job search blog. This way you'll come back to me at a later occasion. Lastly, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Have a terrific day, and most importantly, be great. Take care.